So we're back in the studio. It's been at least a good 2.5 weeks. Since that time, one thing that I wanted to kind of chat through with you is how successful the brand death by 1,000 cuts was, and how kind of that core message of like, don't post more, post better. And how well that resonated with the TikTok community, with our kind of our branding community. And I wanted to kind of dig in more into it because I think we had an aha moment when we were away for that client brand shoot in LA, where we were kind of talking about the Gary Vee concept. And what was really interesting about the feedback for that video is that so many people were relieved to hear that message. And it kind of shows and speaks to what's going on in marketing, right? That because nobody knows what they're doing, they're looking for direction for how to get ahead. And I think one of those extreme voices has been Gary Vee. And Gary Vee has positioned himself so well in the marketing world because he kind of gave that far extreme for like what it kind of allowed people to be like, okay, shit, this is what I should be doing, like the 3 or 4 time post per day.
I think that what's required is a little different differentiation. Gary Vee says post every day. Most people, ourselves included, don't like doing it. It's not don't post a lot. It's post with a strategy. And too many people in marketing are the space is being filled by marketers just dumping posts out there without kind of any thinking.
And that was exactly kind of, I think, the aha moment and the point is that he's offering an extreme because most people want an excuse to not post every day because they want to control it being perfect. And what Gary Vee did was say, get over yourself. Perfect doesn't exist. Just post to post and don't take yourself too seriously. But what has happened is that agencies are now selling to brands, not influencers, that they have to be posting an insane amount of content, and it's killing their brand because they're using that extreme opinion and they're not actually tailoring it to their own strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like Gary Vee and what we tell people is that if you are the brand, right, you have to post. And I think one of the reasons why he said post all the time is it just takes a long time to become good.
Yes.
And if you go slowly and you want it to be perfect, you'll never get there and you'll fall behind.
Completely.
But then what marketing agencies are doing who make money off of contracts go to a brand, not a person necessarily, and say, look, we have to post every day. And so they just post lots of kind of nonsense filler that takes away from the brand. So it's a differentiation with a difference.
And 2 things to that. This is where I'm not shitting on Gary Vee because creating video content is a skill like anything else, right? Like and people want to be good right away. And if you're not practicing and if you're not putting yourself in that uncomfortable period, you're not going to get good. And why digital marketing can be so powerful, especially if you're committed to content creation, is that once you get through that, like that painful learning period of like just practicing and doing it every day and posting it, that's when you get great, right? It's like, it's that practice every day piece.
But let me jump in. You better not be shitting on Gary Vee because he's amazing.
He's amazing.
But what he says things that make you uncomfortable.
Totally.
Because you don't want to do content every day because you want to look great every day. And doing content every day on your phone, that's very difficult even for the best people in this industry to do. But what he says is, you're the brand, you make content if you want to be successful. If you or I are making content or somebody who is the brand, you're letting people get to know you, what your brand is. That's why he says do it. The difference is marketing companies go to a company and get a contract and they post every day, but they post stuff that doesn't inform about the brand. They're posting graphics or they're posting commercials. That's not the same. Like nobody is saying make a post every day saying hire me because I'm the best. They're saying make a post that lets people get to know you as a personal brand. And why people were responding to your video so well, I think, was they feel overwhelmed because they feel obligated to do all of these things that marketing companies are telling them to do. They have to communicate on 6 different channels. They have to have graphics every day.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't know what the heck it's doing and what it's achieving. They just know they're spending a lot of money. And I think coming back to your point on that video is without a strategy, you're kind of navigating waters, just throwing lines in the sea.
I think the social media point that you just brought up is so important, and I want to get there. So remind me to get back to that. But another aha moment that came out of that conversation that I think is worth touching on in kind of response to what you were saying is there isn't one fits all strategy, right? Like it has to make sense for who you are, what you sell, and what your goals are, and how you determine success. And that was another thing that we talked about is if you're truly the best, right? Like you're one of the top experts in your industry, you don't need to post every day. You need to post better. Like the quality of the content needs to be better. And we're seeing a lot of professionals, especially in the States, that are being misguided by agencies to do like stupid or silly content that has no so what, that's actually hurting their brand at the expense of it getting out every day, opposed to being more thoughtful and strategic with their content.
Mm-hmm. Think of it like this almost. You're busy. Let's say you run a company and you're the brand or whatever. You're busy, so you don't want to do the social. So you hire somebody. You know you need to be in the digital world. You hire somebody, and they just start chucking out tons of posts, but it's not strategic.
No.
Right? And then it actually chases some of your clients away because now they're ascribing to your content as fluff or commercial. So by being more impactful, I think that's a good point for people who are building a person.
It's also be impactful, but it's also have a strategy. And I think that there's a lot of businesses and professionals that are paying for marketing to check off their box, but they're trusting people that don't know what they're doing. And I think this is a major issue in marketing right now, is that because nobody knows what the actual secret sauce is, like the algorithms are gated and they're gate kept, you're hiring people that really don't know what they're doing with zero strategy. Except
they kind of pitch themselves. Everybody goes, oh, we know the algorithms.
Yeah, we're the best. So we're strategic. And they're not doing anything.
And we encountered that with a client on the West Coast there, where what their marketing agency / person was doing was just copying what everybody else was doing. So there was lots of activity, but probably no effect. But the client, the customer, really didn't have an ability, because she was a very busy professional, to question what's happening. And so they just get fed, look, we've posted. But
I think a lot of professionals are also getting distracted by having professionals that it speaks to the ego, right? Like having these people that you're paying and they're coming in with their video equipment and they're telling you what to do, and you're kind of following and doing it blindly. And it raises that internal status because you have a social team and you're creating this video content and you're putting it out online. But it's so detrimental to your future success of your business if you don't have a strategy for what you're putting out online, because that's people's first interaction, impression, and judgment of your brand or business. And if it doesn't have a strategy or a so what, not only what's the point, but like you don't know how much that can hurt you, because it's putting you into a box that may not represent your brand or business.
Mm-hmm. The bottom line is it requires intellectual thought to make this content good, and that's what's missing. So when we talk to clients, they just feel like they have to spend this money. They don't know where it's going. It's making them frustrated, and they're lacking the strategy behind.
And I think too, it's worth touching on when you're talking about kind of social media strategy, and for anybody that's listening to this and it's like, okay, well, where do I go? Or like, how do I approach this? Like, this is so overwhelming. Like digital marketing right now is extremely overwhelming because there are so many platforms. The algorithm is changing every day. There's so many, in quotations, experts that are like professing knowledge and expertise that's completely unvalidated or verified. But what I think was also interesting when we were on the West Coast was meeting someone that's very high up at YouTube. And learning deeper the inner workings of YouTube and how YouTube kind of sees itself as a social media platform, and how that really changed our perspective of that platform specifically. And
it was beautiful because we're looking for clarity so we could advise people properly, and to get it from somebody on the inside allows us to give a better explanation to people who have a lot of people have frustration that their YouTube isn't performing, or
our YouTube isn't performing. And it was frustrating for me because it's overwhelming. Like like that. The whole process is overwhelming. But sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's because you're putting the same content. It's working on one platform. It's not working on another. The insights into why YouTube takes longer, I really value it at an intellectual level, and we can tell our clients. Why don't you tell them?
So the kind of the key piece with YouTube is that YouTube has the ability to make its creators really the most amount of money. So because of that reality, like they have the greatest payout on the monetization system of the platform for the creators. So because of that, they make you work harder. And it really, for those who make money off of YouTube, like that is their career. They don't dabble in content creation like you can in TikTok and Instagram, right? Like it's really not, it's not the same reward for output. So, and the main takeaways that we receive for like how to kind of succeed on YouTube, and I think this is really translatable across the platforms, it's for how the algorithm works, is it's based off of really 4 key things. So the first is how well you can hook and keep someone's attention in the first 5 seconds. So when music videos, especially rap videos, when they have that like unnecessary like 15 or 30 second preamble, they never perform well.
Some artist who designed it thought, oh, I'm going to be a little artsy and smoky and take a while to get in.
But if you don't hook them, you don't get the push. And I've even seen that with my own content on TikTok, which is why I'm saying I think this is universal, is it will do really well in the first hour. And then it will completely slow down because I didn't keep enough attention to keep it generating. So the algorithm stops pushing it out. So it's kind of the first piece. The second piece is when they share your content, so when they push it on like the explore page or while you're watching somebody else's video or on anywhere where they didn't directly search for your content piece, when it shows up and the likelihood of, or the how many times they click on it when it was showed tells the algorithm how universally your content is useful to a wider range or a specific range of people based off that click metric. So that's important. But in order to get that, you have to have a great thumbnail. So that's why when people talk about having a great thumbnail, it's in order to generate that click when it wasn't a specific query search.
Just explain thumbnail for everybody.
So it's the cover image that you upload as part of like almost like an album cover, right? So when you play your CD or when you play the video, you don't see that image. It's what exists as part of like entering into that video's experience. So it's the cover. And you don't have covers on TikTok. You have covers. You can upload covers on Instagram and you can upload covers on YouTube. And a great way to generate clicks is to have yourself, so like a human in it, some kind of additional like image or
graphic,
GIF,
kind of
graphic,
up to the right of them,
and text. And that's why you see so much of that on YouTube, because that's such a great way to monetize yourself and to get higher engagement. But what's the fourth piece, which is super, super interesting, is the algorithm will prefer you for all of the things that I just said if you have a lot of content, because what they want to do is keep the user's attention. So if they've clicked on your video, you need to have a ton more so that they can keep you locked in and basically in a black hole for your content. So they can just consume it en masse in one moment because they wanted to watch your content. So it's interesting for us is what I'm seeing now with clients that we're getting online. The first thing that they're saying is, I went into a dark hole and I watched like 3 hours of your content. I was up all night watching it. And you can see that the algorithm starts to push your content more when you have lots of content. So it's when you're looking to get that virality or start making money online, it's really important that you have that bank of content, which really does go back to what Gary Vee does say, right? Is if you want to realize that sooner, post more.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in because there's a lot of information there people have to digest.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If you want, I think there's another differentiation with the difference, which is there are some people whose business is to create YouTube videos and make money.
Totally.
There are businesses who want to use YouTube to promote their personal brand or their products.
Yep.
And so there's a different metric to it. So you don't just copy them. But what we gathered from that meeting with the Google YouTube insider was invest in the hook. If you don't have a hook, you're just wasting time and burning time. So you really have to, and investing in the hook doesn't mean just be clever to make an uninteresting thing interesting. It's your content has to have some entertainment or educational value.
Yep.
Once you got the hook, if you can keep them for 60 seconds, you've made a huge difference in your YouTube
algorithm,
your YouTube resume.
Yep.
They think, okay, this person. So invest in the hook. And then what we would do now to people is get them hooked and then say, look, we're going to talk about this today, and you're not going to believe what we're going to get to later. Right. So you kind of make the listener
and that's why you
want
see
to
videos
stay.
do that is like wait till the fifth point.
Mm-hmm. And so that thumbnail brings them in. The other thing I thought was interesting is YouTube likes essentially, I guess we'd call a referral network. So if I make or you make content or a client makes content, the way we make the content, YouTube suggests other videos after. They also like if people click on your content and then something else underneath, because it shows that you're interlinking relevant material, and then you get showed on the other person's content.
And that is gold for you as a creator, is if it suggests you, and of all the suggestions, they click on your video, because that's how it positions you as an authority or a relevant topic as part of that network effect.
And this is where a lot of our clients are doctors and lawyers. If you make great YouTube content that says, here's an analysis of Amber Heard's horrible testimony, a lot of people will click on that who aren't even in the industry.
Totally,
right?
Or if you're relevant.
Or if you're a plastic surgeon, right? Here's an example of the most commonly botched job last year. Like people will click on that and follow your.
And a great example of that is like, I am someone that would say on paper, I prefer, fashion, beauty, pop culture, etc. But man, like love a good pimple popping video. And that's kind of more in line with like with videos that I actually wouldn't watch, right? So to your point, it's just having content that's good, that's engaging, that's not necessarily specific for lawyers, but that is good too. But it's just having good content because you don't know who's going to find that interesting.
But the example of the pimple popping video is that you'll have a high-end dermatologist in West Hollywood, which will show a pimple, but then give their assessment of this should have been done with a hand sanitizer. I would have used this. So they're positioning themselves as an authority, but providing an entertaining piece.
I'm laughing because I just learned that hand sanitizer is good on pimples after, and it's changed my life. So in case you didn't know that, you're welcome.
But that's how you show your authority on YouTube, is you can kind of provide a critique of something similar to what you do, and it elevates your status.
And this is a good conversation. And the reason why we brought it up is because our main takeaway after that meeting is YouTube's got to cost more, right? Like we've known this, but it speaks to kind of the overwhelming nature of the digital universe and why you kind of need to constantly be learning and having a reality check.
Hey, I just thought of, sorry to interrupt, but a metaphor maybe is, it's kind of like fast food for the digital economy. There are people who want quick, easy solutions, but they're not really good for you in the long term. And so they're consuming a lot of, but YouTube is like an investment in a long exercise regime. You'll see the impact after 6 to 9 months of training, but you really got to lean into it.
Completely. And what was interesting, I want to just finish that thought that it has to cost more because what is required to get out of it. But it also this is where this just becomes like this ongoing philosophical long conversation, because it's also what you want to get out of it, right? Like the content that we're posting, that we're repurposing really from TikTok and our podcast, the longer form content. This is how this person found us. And he really loved the content on YouTube. And it got to that point where we had that critical mass where YouTube was like, okay, you have enough videos that we're going to start now pushing you on YouTube to people who we think is relevant, which hadn't happened to us before. We never heard from anybody off of YouTube. So it is, for us, we're at that point where it's in quotations working, but it's not working for what our goals are for creating content on the internet. That works for us on TikTok because really our strategy is TikTok focused. So it's from your fast food analogy, like it's still satisfying our hunger, but we're now also smart enough to realize that I'm not proposing that to anybody as a strategy. I'm saying this is not a strategy. This is actually not how the platform and algorithm works, but you can generate something off of it. So we should just post the shorts on there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But that's why like almost every solution has to be curated. or bespoke to the client.
Yeah.
And there's not a cookie cutter, but what agencies do, especially with the
Or
big
definitive.
companies. Yeah. Especially with the big companies, right? They all want to get the whale clients, and so they just want to fill like a laundry list of services, and it's not really thoughtful.
And that's what I really dislike about the industry, is because of the ability to make great content, people that really don't know what they're talking about, that are speaking in definitive terms, are allowing people to bullshit customers unnecessarily. Like, if someone is to come to us and we're creating shorts for them, I want to be able to say bluntly, this is not a strategy for YouTube, but it works. It works for what we're trying to achieve, and it doesn't make sense to not post it because it is another platform for another audience member, but this is not a YouTube strategy. Opposed to people, there's a lot of agencies that are like, we're going to shoot for you short form content, and it's going to work for you on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube.